support us in our time together tonight. May our discussion be meaningful and be in the best interest of our children. And Father, we want to thank you for answering our prayers from time to time, and for Faith, who is making almost a full recovery, and that's certainly, we're blessed that that's happened. And we are concerned about Krista's dad. We ask you to be with her family and be with them and comfort them as you can. Father, just guide us through tonight. In Jesus' name we pray.
Next, we're going to move into recognition, and we have a very special guest here today, Miss Patty Rowland and her husband, Jack Rowland. Today is officially recognized in Johnson County as Jack Rowland Day. So that's a pretty kind of day named after you. That's pretty awesome. At this time, I'd like to read the proclamation that was set forth by the Johnson County Commissioners Court today, so bear with me. Jack Rowland Day. Whereas Jack Rowland graduated from Mesquite High School in 1950, is that correct? He attended Tarleton Junior College and received a bachelor's degree in agricultural education from Sam Houston State in 1955. This was followed by a master's degree from East Texas State in the mid-1960s. And whereas in the spring of 1955, upon hearing of a vocational agriculture teaching job opening at Godley, Jack obtained a new suit and in a borrowed car traveled to Johnson County to apply for the job. After visiting with the local administration and the school board president, he had secured a job that lasted more than 44 years. And whereas soon after Jack became employed, there was an opening for a homemaking teacher at Godley High School, and Patty Flynn was hired. Jack seized the opportunity, and Patty Flynn became Patty Rowland. Their union has endured to this day and was blessed with 3 daughters and 6 grandchildren. Jack is quick to give Patty credit for their shared success, and I will add in as he should. And whereas the mark of any educator lies in the achievements of his or her students, he was advisor to a state FFA officer, coached a state champion dairy cattle judging team, and had multiple young farmer state champions. His students excelled in livestock shows with many champions at the Johnson County Junior Livestock Show and had the reserve champion turkey 2 years in a row at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And whereas his leadership extended beyond the classroom, Jack served 8 years as mayor of Godley, was elected president of the Vocational Agricultural Teachers Association of Texas, served on many state FFA committees, and has been a leader in his church. He also served on the board of directors of Ag Workers Insurance Company for over 35 years. After a career lasting from 1955 until 1999, Jack retired as a full-time educator, but remained a valuable resource to the Godley Agricultural Program. The agricultural facility in Godley is named in his honor as a means to recognize his influence. Jack was honored in the summer of 2022 by being named to the Texas Agriculture Teachers Hall of Fame by the Agriculture Teachers Association of Texas. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Johnson County Commissioners Court, do hereby proclaim January 23rd, 2023 as Jack Rowland Day in Johnson County, and encourage all citizens to appreciate and recognize one of the best and certainly the longest serving agriculture educator and FFA advisor in the history of Johnson County. You want to say any words, Mr. Rowland?
I was sitting here looking at this great body we have, trustees, and I'm glad we have them. They look like they do a good job. And it's a long ways from when 1955, and we had guys on board. If they could haul a lot of hay, they made the school board. So things change. And I appreciate y'all inviting us out here this evening. And, the reason this came up with the district commissioners of Commissioner Court was Barney McClure. He decided he'd get that done. And see, the new chairman of the commissioners is one of his students from Cleveland. And so he said he's a real agriculture man. So Barney had a little, or we couldn't have got in. So we thank y'all for having us out here too. And we enjoy it. We know a lot of these folks, and some of them we don't know. Some of them we don't know, and you don't know that I don't know. But anyway, thank you very much. Anybody have a question? I can answer questions. Marissa, quick, Granny.
When we came here in '55, there weren't places for people to live, or teachers. The superintendent's wife, Mrs. Dickinson, found a place for me to live and for Jack. And I had one place, and then Miss Dickinson decided I need to go to another. And I was very grateful because I ended up in the home of Matt and Marissa's great grandmother and lived there until we got married. And then we lived next to her, and she was everyone's great. We loved her. And your families have been so important. I just had to say that.
Anybody want to ask us anything?
Next, we have school board appreciation. I think the easiest thing might be for our principals who, if you brought anything up here, why don't you just stand up and just let them know who it was from, just so they know who provided the gift for them. Being on the school board, it's they get paid the big bucks to come here and make sure that we're doing everything we need to, but we sure appreciate all the support and the accountability these guys hold us to. They hold us to a high standard, they ask a lot of questions, and they make sure that we're doing the very best that we can for our kids. So we appreciate love and support that these guys give us. So, Mr. Flood, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, really, it's more a combined gift from all of us for the most part. Nikki really has a brain for it, and so helps spearhead most of everything that's up there. And the vast majority of it comes from kids and projects that they do around, because we know that's really why y'all do what y'all do, is for the kids to be able to do stuff here at school. So it really is kind of a combined thing from all the principals and admin squad, that we just really appreciate what y'all do and the support for us, because we know it's a lot of volunteer time and extra work on y'all, whereas, we're paid to be up here. Y'all give it just out of the goodness of your hearts to make sure that these kids are taken care of. So we really appreciate it. But Miss Nick spearheaded most of it, so I'll kind of let her describe what's in the bucket. And the shirt that says Godley High School, I had to one-up Tom because he did so good last week with the Christmas cards. I had to try to do better than Tom this time.
So really, the bucket is through the lens of the theme this year of Forward Together. And we wanted to say thank you for helping our students move forward together to their future careers. So in your bucket are samples of work from students in different programs of study across the high school. Graphic design made cards, our commercial photography students pulled together photos and made a photo collage that's framed for you. Our family and community services students made some hot chocolate for you. Our robotics students made buttons, and then our also made a little, they're different in everyone's bucket. Some of them are flowers, some of them are pinwheels, but they practice their soldering skills and solder together the lights and the circuit boards to make a little blinking light piece. So you'll find all of that in your bucket, and it's all a representation of the work that you do to help students explore their careers and move forward together for their future careers.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Walker also has a picture up here of the band that he took there, so he put that out as well. So for everyone, please join me in thanking our school board for all the support they do, and say thank you, and we appreciate you very much. Next, we've got a couple of donations.
There's a video too.
Okay, oh yes, that's right. We had some kids make a school board appreciation video. And if Marty's down here helping us, that means we're... If you want to tell us about some of the donations while they're working on the video.
So the first donation is from the Esther and Jonathan Phelps benevolent account. This is a connection that we made through Burleson Works and Alex Phillips in attendance at their Manufacturing Industrial Alliance meeting. They donated $2,500 for us to purchase a classroom set of FR coveralls for our students in our welding program. So we wanted to publicly recognize them and say thank you for that partnership. The second donation is from History Maker Homes in the Godley Ranch community right here behind the high school. They called and wanted to donate money as a part of their season of giving right before Christmas. That will be used to purchase a canine trainer. It's a life-size dog that allows you to do IV injections and administer medications and all of the things that you would do in a vet med class. So students will be able to use that to train and to practice their skills on that. So we wanted to say thank you to History Maker Homes and the Godley Ranch community as well for that donation and partnership.
And the last donation there was from Hillis. They brought us it's a small tractor. We're going to see what we can do with it, but we appreciate them for donating that to us as well. Next, we'll move into, was it ready to go?
Thank you for walking behind our students and beside our students as they take their first steps in their educational journey when they enter that pre-K classroom. And you continue to be by their side and support them as they take those last steps across the stage in May to enter their bright new future.
For the countless hours you've dedicated to this district to make sure we succeed.
For providing us with the buildings and spaces needed to grow and thrive.
Por creer en todo y cada uno de los estudiantes.
For being our biggest supporters on and off the field.
For being the voice of our community.
For making sure that all students' needs are met.
For making our safety your top priority. For making sure we have the tools needed now so that we can succeed after graduation.
For supporting teachers ISD is so greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for leading Godley ISD forward together.
Thank you.
That video was put together by Ms. Traywick and her students in her class, so that was a student name as well.
Thank you for walking.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move into stakeholder communication. So S&P, give us a first. Let's start with the elementary update. We've got kids in there, but we've still got stuff going on. So give us an update.
Okay, we've provided some pictures up here, but first off, I want to thank the board, Dr. Deere, Principal Block, all the staff, everything like that. We had a great ribbon cutting last week. I know it's been a long time coming, but the school looks absolutely great. Huckabee has a great design, so it was an exciting time for us. But here's a few update pictures just from the inside. Oh, wait, you're playing? That's at the high school. You don't have the elevator? Yeah, no, it's fine. I'll just talk through it. It's fine. I'll give you some stuff that we are working on right now. The bleachers, I know we discussed last board meeting. Those are in, operational. Those got completed. Right now, we're working on punch list items inside the building, but right now the majority of work is not going on during school hours. Anything the Principal Block needs, anything like that, we have staff on site to take care of. Wrapping up the playgrounds right now. I really wish I had pictures. And there's a few material items that are going to be coming in late April, AV-wise. We're going to weekends get those installed. Primarily, really, it's just taking care of any needs the school has, anything that comes up right now. And so, but yeah, we are really close to being completely out of there. So I'll just take any questions.
I do have a question for you. So can you talk to me about the process for your punch list, how Ms. Block and team can add to that punch list, how you burn that down, and what's your projected timeline to be complete?
Yeah, exactly. So how the process actually works is we'll walk the school and create our own punch list, and then we get with Huckabee, the architects, go through, verify those items are complete. So right now, our superintendent out there has done a great job being very detailed. Huckabee may have added a few items to our punch list internally. So basically what we're doing is we've walked through, we've got a punch list crew that goes in. Right now, punch list wise, interior, I think we're being projected to be finished there mid-February. And then the exterior was just walked, and so we'll put together a game plan for that one. And then just to answer your question with Principal Block, last week I know I said with her, anything that comes up, we're documenting anything that we can take off her list immediately gets taken care of, or we give her updates, I think daily really, on the status of it. Do you have anything?
I was just going to say, we have a Google Doc that the teachers are able to go in and add things that they might see in their classrooms. Obviously, if impossible to be in all the nooks and crannies. So they're able to add things onto my list, and then we still meet weekly for sure, if not more frequently, to reconcile to make sure that my list and their list match up. And then I'm keeping my own documentation about when we talk about things and, you know, kind of my own notes and those kinds of things. But we stay in contact that way about it.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, Robert, you want to come up to the high school?
Hey, thank you. Robert Magna, I'm the superintendent here at Godley High School Phase 2, which is the CTE building in the arena. Good evening, members of the board. We just got a few photos to kind of show you guys an overview of what's going on here at during the high school construction, which most of y'all have probably seen since we're right here on campus. But let's look through these photos here. You guys can see last month when we came in and talked, we were just putting down the decking on level 2 and starting to go up with some work on level 3. Here you can see we've got all the scaffolding down out front where the aluminum bleacher seating would go, and that wall's been completed. We poured 2 of the 3 pours there for the slab on level 2. You can see up in the top corner, that pour is happening this week. That'll complete the concrete on level 2. You also see on section D, which is the right half of the screen, we're forming up the cast-in-place concrete beams and columns that'll support level 3 and also support the raker beams that are going to be part of the reserve seating or the fixed seating for the CTE building. In the background, you can see we've decked the portion of level 3, and you know you can see the columns extending on up to level 4. So we're getting closer to that 75-foot top there, where we'll top out at the top of the CTE building. If you go down to level 1 on the inside, you can see we're doing wall framing inside, and up above you can see not the light shining on it, but trust me, there's hangers right there for the mechanical systems. The fireproofing is started this week in the CTE, and that goes up there along the structure. And once the fireproofing's in, we'll be able to start setting the mechanical piping and ductwork in level 1, both sections D and E. This is looking here, you can see stud wall framing on the left side of your screen. You can see the masonry block walls on the right side of your screen. This next picture shows us the new construction lab, welding shop, I keep calling it, but I think the real term for it is the construction lab. So this block wall on the right side of the screen, and you can see the block walls in the background. That's going to make up the floral cooler and the floral design area right there. Over in the arena, we were fighting with the mud and getting the plumbing in last time we talked over up against the building. We were able to get a break in the weather to pour the slab up against the building there. And if you can see basically what we've got on the top half of the screen, we're going to mirror on the bottom half of the screen. So the guys are working to get that pour set up for next week so we can pour that bottom half. And then that'll leave us where the Hall of Honor goes on the left side of our screen, where we bring in the big crawler crane to erect the large structure over there in the arena. We've also started the demo of the visitor side bleachers, and we're doing some preparation for the utilities in that area to make safe as regards to the gas line, so we can start with the excavation for the new visitor side bleachers and the concession building that's going to be going in, which will be called Section F. Over up back in the tennis court area and the connector road coming up to the building, you can see the swamp out there with all the rain, if you guys remember we had. The box culverts were in there. They were able to get the water diverted around enough to go ahead and pour the drainage structure, connect all those boxes together, so that drainage structure is complete. They've got the guardrails on there, be able to put the last few hundred feet of paving in and connect that up to the middle school. You guys have any questions about the work going on here at the high school, what we're working on here over the next month?
Yes, sir. A couple of questions. Substantial completion date for CTE wing and then also for the arena.
So the substantial completion for the CTE is still the end of October, beginning of November, and the arena is the middle of January. So right now we've got some changes that we're looking at to assess the impacts on the schedule, but there's some overall changes to the project as far as some additions that have been made, but a little bit of lessons learned, I think, on some of the other schools too, that those changes have come forward. So we're assessing those, and we'll be able to give you another update next month as to how those have affected the schedule. But we've been plus or minus a few weeks either way.
Are we still seeing substantial delays with things like electrical panels and such as that we saw at the Pleasant View?
We did see a substantial delay on the main switch gear, but we proposed an alternate that was accepted, that was ordered, and that should be here shortly. So that was taken care of months ago with regards to the electrical switch gear. We're working through the roofing material, so that should be out here in the next few days, if not the first week of February. So we'll go ahead and store that on site. So, those are some of the things. But our guys have been looking through the long lead time items back, over the months leading up to this to mitigate those problems. So it just kind of is surprising what's a delay this week and what's a delay the next week. But I think we've identified any of the really long lead items, and those are either going to be delivered to be stored so we can put them on at the time they're needed, or we've seen that they will arrive in time.
And last question for you. Are we seeing, I'll call it mischief, theft, whatever, here on site anywhere with our construction area?
No, sir. We just had a couple issues with students, and Mr. Flood whips them right into shape. We've had a couple issues with crazy construction guys, and we whipped those guys into shape. But just silly stuff that people are walking with it don't need to be walking. But no mischief. Haven't had fire extinguishers shot off, or people driving lifts off the slab. The normal stuff that you see. Haven't had any of that. So these kids in this district are a lot more respectful than a lot of the districts that I've been in, where it's just fight your way in, fight your way out kind of deal. So hasn't been a problem in the community. Hasn't an impact on society.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I have a couple questions, and you may not be able to answer all of these, but Mr. Flood or Dr. Dearmite, impacts on graduation, any new impacts that we're foreseeing, or baseball, softball, or soccer season, other than the ones we already have?
No, ma'am. We're able to get chairs and bleachers and stuff so we can still host graduation here. So pending weather, just like always, kind of the idea is we'll make sure that we keep it on that date for everybody that's traveling in so that we respect their time and their travel plans. So if we think weather's going to be bad, we'll move it indoors. But we'll try to keep it on that date like we have in the past. Right now we have plenty of chairs, plenty of bleachers coming in and stuff like that. And people will be able to come in through the doors just like football season to get back there to sit and hang out and do what they need to do. So no issues there. In soccer, we have our first home game actually on Thursday, so no, that's all running smooth. Ms. Wilborn, Coach Marler is the boys' side, Wilborn is the girls' side. They've taken care of notifying everybody to sit around the track, kind of bring your own chairs, hang out. So that's worked out really well. We'll know more Thursday after our first home game for the girls' side. And then we're just really playing a district schedule at home. We kind of made all the preseason games away to do that this year. And then baseball, nope, we're going to make it work. So we're going to open up the indoors here for bathrooms and things like that, so people can go to the bathroom here. The tournaments, Coach Lewis had to take care of his own restrooms if he wanted to play tournament games here because the school is in use during the day, so he took care of that. So we'll have a couple portables out there for people to use, that are just closer throughout the whole season, then we'll have these indoors for anybody else. So Booster Club has a plan in place for concession stand where they're bringing a trailer that they can set up and kind of take down, and we'll have it for tournaments and stuff. So we will have some things, but it'll still be nice to play here and make it happen. So.
I have a quick question. Sorry. Is there anything in? Let me get this closer. Is there anything in particular that's pushed the arena date back a month? I know you said there was changes, but do you have any specifics? Because I know it came back into December and now it's back into January.
Well, the overall project, the arena and the Section F building, which is the concession stand, all that ties together in the demo of the existing building over here is all tied together in one piece now. So we'll be opening up the building during the summer and tying that all back together. So it flows around the corner. Those two, the arena and the new building F, all tied together.
How much has rain pushed us back from finishing? Because I know we probably would have been done with the concrete pour, the foundation.
20 recordable weather days beyond the average.
So rain's done quite a bit as well. Because what do you need? 7 days for it to dry out, or 10 days? Something? How long do you need for it to dry out after it rains?
Well, we just need it to be dry down in the dirt. There's cardboard boxes to support that slab. You guys might have remembered from the ag building. I had to do several different takes out there, so we're trying to avoid that and just get a window into get that second slab poured. So we're keeping our fingers crossed for this evening and in the morning. We don't have a big rain event here, and we'll complete that arena slab. But you know, it goes back to the original utility, all the utility rework and that together. But now I'm working that whole day together to complete that arena, because we've got to have through adding on the concession building and the additional visitor features.
Thank you.
Any other questions for SB? All right. Reader, can you give us a little update?
Sorry, I turned it off.
Yep, all right. So Jeff Stevens, project manager, Reader Construction. Told David I was coming to the board agenda this evening, so Dave Arroyo wanted to come with me. I'll let him introduce himself and explain his role with the company. Good evening, thank you for having us. My name is David Arroyo. I'm a operations manager. My role on this job and any of our other jobs is to make sure that our superintendents or any field personnel have the tools to make it a successful project, make sure it's safe, make sure it's clean, orderly, and we stay on track. I provide all the tools for our team members. Jeff makes sure that the project stays on track, focus, quality, budget, everything like that. So I wanted to be a part of it. I was a part of the original interview process, so I'm glad to be a part of this process. Thank you. All right, so we showed this last month. This is our site logistics plan. Last month, we didn't have a whole lot to show. We just kind of started scratching dirt out here. But as this was taken, I think yesterday, we've got all of our site logistics up, and pretty good headway on grading and a little bit more. We got site fencing up. We take pride in the way we keep our site. Something we did that was kind of a last minute change. I don't know if you can tell, kind of on the left side of the photo, we held our fence back about 15, 20 feet for safety. That way somebody, can you hear me? I'm not good with the microphone, sorry. All right, so anyway, so site fencing's up, all of our windscreens up. What I was saying, I don't know if you can tell, we held our fence off the curb on the photo left side, about 20 feet, just for safety. Allow pickup, pull out, be able to see traffic both ways. I don't know if you've ever pulled through a construction site. That fence screen it does a very good job of preventing eyes from seeing in and out. So it's intentional. Another photo from the other side, just showing site and our site logistics setups complete. And then last month, what we talked about, probably the biggest thing in our critical path was getting the transformers relocated with Christmas break and power turned back on. I think we got power turned back on the day we intended. We had a couple weather days in there just due to cold weather, nobody could work. But everything's complete except for landscaping and a little bit of striping and sidewalk cleanup that we'll get done in the next couple of weeks. I need to come in on a Saturday to do that. Next, photo of the new practice fields. Grading's complete. Site utilities should start next week. A couple weeks for the site utilities. And then we'll have a small retaining wall go in and we'll get in with landscaping and irrigation. And we're currently demoing the exterior canopy that was a structural canopy. Ran into a small issue. There's a few pathways that run the comms for the admin that were running through the canopy that I don't think anybody knew was there. Really not that big a deal. A couple runs of fiber we're working with me for a temporary solution. We'll have to come in over summer break for a permanent solution. Another photo of grading. And you can kind of see on the photo left side of the site, you can pretty much see the footprint of the building at this point. You can see the outline where everything's slightly more compacted. We've got the field to the picture right is almost to grade, and then we've got a finished demo before we can start grading up a lot closer to the building. And just another photo from opposite point of view. Again, we're hoping to have grading done here in the next couple of weeks, demo done, and start drilling piers probably 2 weeks from now. We'll have, for about 2 or 3 months, we'll talk about drilling piers and pouring grading. We were putting a presentation together, I think it was last Thursday. And I think Cole came up with the idea that we want to kind of include a fun fact. Not every month we'll have something entertaining to show. With this one, as of right now, we've moved 10.3 million pounds of dirt, which was the weight of 687 school buses. Thought that was an interesting fact. And thank you all for letting us be here and giving us the opportunity. Any questions?
Questions for Rita? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Do we have videos? Yeah. It's an easy giveaway by Miss Travis class.
They should have made two. At this time, we extend the opportunity for the public participation portion of the meeting in compliance with Section 551.007 of the Texas Government Code. It appears we have 3 people wishing to address the board tonight. Public participation provides the general public the opportunity to address the board regarding topics listed on the agenda. Persons attending the meeting and wishing to participate in public forum must complete a sign-up form and submit the form to the board secretary prior to the meeting being convened. Each individual addressing the board will have 3 minutes to make their presentation. Personal attacks on district employees or students will not be allowed. All participants are expected to speak with respect to civility and maintain a calm, supportive demeanor. Upon expiration of the 3 minutes, I will call the next person that signed up to speak. Please note the Open Meetings Act does not require the board to respond to any comments or complaints from a member of the public regarding an agenda item. We will now begin the public forum. And first we have Holly, is it Clemens?
Mr. President, I will keep the time and I'll raise my hand at 30 seconds per leader.
Thank you.
Is it on? All right. Hi, board. My name is Holly Clemens, and I'm the mom of 3. And I'm here to talk to you about consent agenda item 7C. And when you guys are thinking about this, and you were elected by the people, you are elected to represent the voters. You're not elected to represent your admin or your super. And if you pass this, you're creating a Gestapo. And you are going to create a personal police force to protect your superintendent and your admins. And that can be extremely problematic down the road. And this is silencing the public. And so when you have admin or you have a rogue superintendent that is doing something that's breaking the law, they will protect, their Gestapo will protect them and not the taxpayers or the students. There's 2 ISDs that are constantly in the news right now for this. One of them is Round Rock ISD right outside of Austin, and they're a hot mess express with their police arresting parents that were coming to speak at board meetings, and there's a lawsuit about it. There's also Joshua ISD, and they have a horrible bullying problem, and their ISD police will not create reports on this. The children have concussions, they have ruptured eardrums, and the ISD police is protecting the superintendent because they're not doing what they are supposed to be doing in the reports that they have to file to the state about how many bullying reports there are. This is absolutely, you should not approve this in any way, form, or fashion. This is not in the good, best interest of students or parents or taxpayers. This is in the best interest of your school administration and of your superintendent. that is not who you are elected to represent. And then I also wanted to talk to you about number 5, public participation. This is ridiculous that I'm having to talk to you now before the presentation. You should be having public presentation at the beginning of your meetings, and you should also be having it after your presentations, because you have all of these lists of presentations that are coming up, and I don't know what you're going to say. The people don't know what you're going to say, and you're going to present these, and you have to listen to us beforehand, but then you're going to vote on it. And I won't get to say anything about that after the presentation of what's actually going to be said. And so I think that you should have 2 different times for the parents to speak. Was that time?
We've got 20 seconds.
20 seconds? Okay. And so I would just ask you guys, please remember who elected you. And when you don't remember who elected you, you get unseated. Thank you. I do not. I live in Fort Worth, but I'm a federal and a state taxpayer, therefore I have every right to speak at your meeting.
Thank you. Next we have Mary Lowe.
Hi, my name is Mary Lowe, and I am the founder of an organization called Families Engage, and we're parent advocates across the state of Texas. And we work with the State Board of Education, your legislators, and your senators. And I want to talk to you about the same items that were just mentioned on your agenda. And I would like for you to write down Education Code 51.203, Family Code 52.03, Family Code 52.031, Education Code 37.081, and Education Code 37.083. My greatest concern here, aside from what you've already heard, is that this lacks due process. And I believe probably most of you have children, and the execution of the items that you're looking at tonight create a scenario that lacks due process. And one of the fundamental rights that separate our country from other countries is due process. And I would hate for children to grow up in a society and a culture in their school that lacks due process. And I don't think that you want that as a parent either. 52.03 and 52.031 allows your school district police SRO officer to dispose of a case without reporting it. And in Frisco, Texas, we have numerous rapes of children that were buried by their SRO. I don't want to see this continue happening across the state in our schools. And I also want to be fair and let you know that Education Code 51.203 that's allowing you to do this is being reviewed by the state and is most likely going to be repealed and is going to quickly, within 4 to 5 months, put you in a position to redo this. So I'm here tonight to ask you to pull these items from your agenda. I'm also aware that you have already hired someone by the name of Quinteros as your SRO officer, and I see no record of this being on the agenda, and that's a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act, which is attached to a penal code under which each member of this board can be arrested and held in jail for that violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. So I'm encouraging you to step back and look at the laws and study what happens in other schools in other areas. This is one of the most egregious events we see across the state, where we see schools in the most trouble and the most chaos is where they have imported this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next we have Kayla Lane.
Kayla Lane. I just want to say shame on Godley ISD's district administration and board members for secret closed-door conversations about forming an ISD police since at least November, which is the date of the email between previous SRO Dusty Ford, Brian Hunt, and T. Cole, thanks to an open records request through T. Cole. At a city council meeting on December 12th, interim Chief Cantrell revealed that himself and Dr. Deere and David Wallace had conversations regarding this, and that come July, the school district would have its own ISD police,
and that Quinteros would be the police chief for the ISD police. The city council was completely left in the dark on these situations, other than Mayor Acey, who apparently was in on these conversations. The city council had asked Dr. Deere to come talk at a city council meeting regarding this, which never happened. Furthermore, the hiring of SRO Quinteros was supposed to have been done in a public meeting and hired by the city council. The MOU between the city and Godley ISD is very clear that the city controls personnel, as are ordinances 36.03 and 36.07. As this did not happen, I believe the hiring to be wholly illegal. You, Godley ISD, are funded by taxpayers, and as such are accountable to said taxpayers, and your taxpayers deserve transparency. You do not have the privilege of making these decisions and having these conversations outside of a public board meeting. We have shared at several city council meetings the dangers of an ISD police separate from city police or county police, because the district has not given us an opportunity to do so, since it has not been on a board agenda until tonight, and you do not allow comments on topics outside of agenda items. I want to thank the Godley City Council for allowing comments on items outside of their agenda. Texas Ed Code 37.081 states the chief of police of a district police department shall be accountable to the superintendent and shall report to the superintendent. A police officer should not report to a superintendent who is trained in education. They do not have law enforcement training. A police officer should report to a law enforcement agency who has special training in this arena. As we saw in Joshua ISD, there is no higher chain of command for ISD police other than the superintendent. When multiple assaults are happening of a student in Joshua ISD and the ISD police refuses to report, and the parent goes to the city police and the county sheriff's office and is told they have no jurisdiction and they should circle back to the superintendent, who then does nothing, this is the problem. The poor mother had to secure an attorney out of her own resources, something that most parents cannot afford to do. We should not have to hire an attorney to ensure that our kids are safe and that assaults are reported and handled properly. I hope you take to heart what I am saying and do the right thing as a district. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent reports.
Okay, guys, you're gonna have to advance it. I don't have the clicker. Okay. So we did, we gained a few, but we also lost a few after the break. I think the last one I saw we're right at where we were last time, at 09. Is that correct? So this is a look. I got that. You'll go back one. I got this from the Johnson County Appraisal District website, or the report that they send us. Godley is GOS. So you'll see, actually, starting in 2017, every year those are the Godley house starts. Every year we've broken a record. It gets higher and higher every year. In 2023, in just 1 month, we've already got 83 starts. I'll just show you this because with rising interest rates, the housing market is slowing down a little bit, but because we have more and more developments coming online, our housing, our houses that are being built are still increasing. So the growth is still coming, even though it's slowing down a little bit. We're gaining so many developments through all of our many houses from our developments that are increasing. We're still going up quite a bit. You can see on the next slide there, that just shows a little bit the appraisal values of Johnson County. They have pretty much mirrored the state. So those are some of just the land values that have gone up. You can go on to the next one. So that's about all we got for superintendent reports. So we wanted Aubrey Slayball with Huckabee to talk to us in a little bit more detail about the bond and the recommendation that our long-range facilities planning committee made to us last month. So Aubrey, you can take it away.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. I know the potential of a bond election. There's a lot of information to cover and to make sense of in order for you to make that decision. And so we just wanted to follow up on last month's presentation and give you a little bit more information in a few areas. Just make sure it is all clear to you all. So tonight, We're just going to recap on what the Long Range Facility Planning Committee went through to get to this point, and go over the committee recommendation again, fleshing out a little bit more information on some projects. And then finally, we want to help answer some frequently asked questions that we saw come up in the community survey that we completed. So just as a reminder, the Long Range Facility Planning Committee was a community-driven committee that was established, about 60 members, and they met 8 times between August and November to talk through a variety of topics. And this is kind of the summary of what they all went through. They talked about just the state of the district, the demographics, the growth. A financial advisor came in and talked about the finance of the district and the future potential of any bond election. And then we spent a lot of time going through a variety of projects and what makes sense for the district. Not every project made the cut in the end. Then finally, last month, what's highlighted in yellow, the committee came and presented to you their recommendation, which I'm just elaborating on a little bit more tonight. Should you all decide to call a bond election, that would be the next action. That has to be done no later than Friday, February 17th, if this were to be a May election. The committee was given some guiding charges, and that was just prioritizing the district's current and long-term facility needs and taking the educational needs in respect to that, looking at all of that together. And then what's the impact of the financial position of the district with the projects that they decide to recommend to you all. And then ultimately bringing that report to you. Some of the principles that the committee kept in mind as they went through that process is making sure that they remember and value the small town feel of Godley, and recognizing the small class sizes that you have, and that is very unique in today's society or climate, and just valuing that, but at the same time being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And you can see the other list of items there as well. So they kept all of that in mind as they went through this process. And in the end, what came out as the major priorities were to finish the 21 bond projects that were postponed due to inflation, accommodate additional 5,000 students, as you all are growing quickly, focusing on student learning and experience, safety and security, technology, and improving traffic flow and parking. So again, their recommendation was focused on how to accommodate 5,000 students of additional growth. You can see where you are today, you're around 2,800 students. In 5 years, you're going to be at 5,500, and in 9 years, you're going to be near 8,500. So growth is coming quickly. And so in order to accommodate that growth, these are the major projects. And that includes 3 new elementary schools at 740 student capacity apiece. That gets you 2,220 students. A new middle school, you would gain 1,200 students in capacity. Adding on to Godley Middle School, an additional 650 students would bring that campus as well to a 1,200 student capacity. Godley High School, adding another 950 students to that campus. And then renovating the other 2 elementary schools for equity. But all of that would give you an additional 5,000 students in capacity. So this is the focus, and so I'm going to elaborate a little bit on each of these projects. First, looking at the elementary schools. In the blue, you can see your current and projected enrollment numbers. And in the orange, you see if we were to add a new elementary school every 2 years, that's what keeps you ahead of that curve. If it, again, all of these are assuming these projections occur as projected. Everything can obviously adjust faster or slower based on how that growth actually happens, but this is what's projected right now, is a new elementary every 2 years to stay up with capacity. And what that looks like from a cost standpoint, This might be a little bit overwhelming and hard to comprehend, but I'll show you another graph here in a second to help put this into better terms. But Pleasant View, if you look at the table at the bottom, it bid at $291 a square foot, and this is construction costs. This was June of 2021, so this is just as prices were starting to rise. And you can see how things are going to escalate quite a bit from there. Beyond the construction cost, the total project cost is where you see all the additional costs that go into a project, such as design fees and permits and furniture and technology and all of those things that go within the building. So that's where you can see how those escalate pretty considerably with the escalation rates that we're planning for the bond, and I'll explain that too.
Someone have a permit question? Thought I heard. Someone else? So, okay, so that's one of the I guess the expenses and the difference between total construction costs and project costs. Are we even able to start without permits?
No, it would be impossible to be able to start a project like this without a permit. One, you've got to be able to tie in all the city and county utilities. No way you can do that without their approval. There's many third-party inspections that have to happen. And then at the end of the project, you've got to have their approval to be able to move in and get your either temporary certificate of occupancy or ultimately a permanent certificate of occupancy. So I'm going to show you this chart, and I'll continue explaining what that previous slide showed. The black line is the average cost per square foot of every elementary school Huckabee has done since 2011. And it's really hard to see a green line on there, but there was a green trend line on there. I don't know if you can see it on your monitors. But you can see even with the huge escalation we had in 2021 and the conservative escalation rates of 15%, 12%, and 8% we're projecting in this potential bond. Moving forward, if you can see that trend line, it averages 7% a year over that almost 2-decade point. And you can see that it really does average out over time. And so we're being conservative here in the short term just because the market is still so unpredictable. But I think long term, it's all going to average out to the 7% a year that you've seen in the last 2 decades. So we just want to make sure we have all of those costs covered to handle that in the short term. Any questions on kind of the costs and how that's all put together before I continue with some more projects?
So, yeah, to start with, understand the recent inflation rates have, I'll say, skewed some of these projections. So, I'm going to think positive for a minute and assume that some of our inflation rates come down. How hard is it to go back and readjust this, I'm going to say a year from now, to get a new view of what might be reality then?
Yeah, we can reforecast this at any point along the way. And if escalation rates do come down beyond what we're projecting, then it's money saved on the project that can go back to the taxpayer.
I have a question about design costs. When we first started talking about Pleasant View, we talked about any future elementaries that we may build would be very close in design. So are we going to save money by following through with that, with any future elementaries, and is that reflected in these costs?
Put me on the spot there. There's definitely the potential for a saving in a design fee in a true prototype situation. If there's, significant changes still, then, well, it'll just be on a case-by-case basis. We'll have that conversation. As far as what's considered in the budget, this early on, we just do a percentage of all design fees, permit fees, all of those what we call soft costs. And so that's just in here the same percentage we always use. But if we look at the 2021 bond, for example, we were under budget on the soft costs on almost every project. And so that allowed us to put more money into construction because it was needed in that case. If it's not needed, then again, it's just savings back to you. Okay, looking at some of the other projects, the elementary school renovations at RBG and Legacy. Most of this scope was in the 2021 bond and just was unable to occur because of the inflation, and so that is moving forward into the 2023 bond recommendation with some additional scope as well to make sure the campuses are equitable as far as learning environment goes, with collaboration spaces, outdoor learning spaces. Along those lines, we will also look at improving safety and security where necessary, updating finishes, and updating building systems like the roof and HVAC system and fire alarm that are at the end of their life cycle. And then updating technology, especially within the classroom. The middle school, we're looking, like I said, at an addition to Godley Middle School to bring it up to a 1,200 student capacity, and renovating the middle school very similar to what I just mentioned on the 2 elementary schools, to bring up those systems that are at the end of their life, kind of reset the life cycle of that building, and make sure that the existing school is equal to the addition that will be completed there. We're also looking at a new middle school, so you would have 2 middle schools that together would be a 2,400 student capacity for grades 6 through 8. So this also moves the 6th grade up into the middle school level. And this is what we're looking at on why we're making that, why the district is making that decision. The existing capacities within 3 years, 3 to 4 years, the 6th grade center will not hold a full grade level in that building. The 7th and 8th grade center, middle school will also be at capacity in 3 or 4 years. And so just for more efficiency, we're bringing all of those grades together, but it was very important to the committee that the 6th grade wing be separate and still allow them kind of that year of transition before they're kind of mingled in with the older age students. Looking at this green line on this chart, you might also ask, do we need this much this fast? And the committee looked at a variety of options here for the middle schools. One being open the new middle school first, which does give you additional capacity, and then that would push the addition to Godley Middle School down the road 4 or 5 years. They also looked at phasing the middle school number 2, maybe only doing 600, 700 students at first. In both of those options, the escalation of pushing the rest of those pieces of those projects out added about $30 million to the total cost of all of the middle school projects. So while it looks like a big jump here, this gets you the most bang for your buck and will give you capacity for quite a ways down the road. And then the high school has several additions proposed. And this one, just based on phase 2 and phase 3 that are under construction right now, you will gain capacity here that will get you a few years down the road. And so these will be prioritized based on what the need is at the time as the school needs to gain capacity in 4 or 5 years. So it includes a classroom and sped addition, 700 students, so it'll be very similar to this phase 1 classroom wing, 3-story classroom wing here is what we're projecting. And that will be out in front of the fine arts wing. We're looking at an ag project center addition, so with some more space for more animals. Fine arts addition, we knew this was only the first piece of it. There will be another piece to get additional art classrooms, dance and theater programs more fleshed out. And it will also include the Performing Arts Center that can seat 1,200 people. Then phase 5 includes classrooms that could be used for CTE, an athletics addition that includes an additional gym and locker rooms, which is typical once you get a campus capacity of around 2,000 to have another gym. And visitor stadium addition that would add 2,200 spectators, bringing your full stadium to 8,000, 400 on home and 400 on visitor. Also includes tennis and ag locker rooms and some additional parking, including paving the home stadium parking lot. And so in the end, all of these additions will bring the high school capacity to around 2,400 students. And like I said, you've got capacity here until about 27, 28, and that's when the next addition will need to occur if these projections are correct. And so we will prioritize what the need is at that time, if it's the phase 4 700 students, or if there's another another few pieces that maybe we can pull all together and do one larger project, just based on your capacity at the time. And then this chart might be helpful, again, just reinforcing, do we need all of these projects right now? The yellow line shows what your demographics projected in 2011, and the orange or red line in 2019, and the blue line in 2021. So you can see with each demographics report, your growth rate is increasing significantly. And so if that holds true, and you choose not to include all of these projects in this bond to get 5,000 additional students, it is just likely that you'll be coming back to the voters sooner for another bond election, whereas if these rates hold true, we're hoping this gets you 7 or 8 years down the road. Any questions on those projects? Got a few. Okay. So if you're accommodating 5,000 additional students, you also need infrastructure and other things to support them. And so also included in the committee's recommendation is some traffic flow improvements and additional parking at multiple campuses. One of the main things that we have planned is to do a formal traffic impact analysis study by a traffic engineer here for the middle school, high school master plan site. Not just where you are today, but looking at the end. Can you accommodate the number of students that are proposed here, and how best to go about that to make sure you have appropriate parking and appropriate number of drives, entrances, and exits in the right places. And we will look to see how much we can impact some of the other campuses as well. And we're looking at safety and security upgrades district-wide where those are needed. Tornado shelters that are required by code when you are building new buildings. Technology infrastructure, buses and transportation facility, that is another project postponed from the 2021 bond. A wastewater treatment plant, that may be necessary if you're getting ahead of the city's infrastructure and where you're building their campuses. And then converting the 6th grade campus to other district-wide needs, like we said, in 3 or 4 years, it's not going to be big enough to hold a grade level. And so we think there's other uses that we can put for that building. And then land purchases. As you grow, you're going to need a spot to put these buildings and these students that we're talking about. Also, if you're adding 5,000 students, there's a lot of programs that you want these students to be able to partake in, and they will need to have space as well. So within the projects we've already talked about, this bond addresses growth for CTE, Performing Arts Center, Black Box Theater, athletics, ag, and some locker rooms for ag and tennis as well. So that is a lot, but I want to let you know that's not all the committee considered. There's a lot of other projects that they saw value in and saw potential in, they just didn't think now is the right time. So this is a list of projects that did not make the recommendation, but that they wanted to keep on the list for the next bond cycle potentially, as you'll get larger, that you might be able to support some of these things. All right, so in conclusion, the committee's recommendation, in order to make sure you all can accept the next 5,000 students within the district, was that list of projects that I gave you, and that's a total of $889 million. I know that's a big number. I know that's a lot to digest, and so Phyllis is going to come help explain what all that means for you all from a financial standpoint.
Okay, hello everyone, glad to see you all. Thank you for having me. Okay, we're going to talk just a little bit about, first of all, I'm Phyllis Grissom, I work with Aubrey out of Huckabee, and I have been coming out here pretty regularly since August, getting to know your community, getting to know your committee, and all of this kind of culminating in this period of time, this exciting time before you all are going to consider what to do with the growth that's coming out here. Oh yeah, I get to do this. Okay. So throughout this process, of course, we've been hearing from the community, we've been hearing from the committee. Part of our process also involves a third-party community survey, so we've been taking in that feedback and understanding what we know about the bond, what's being said about the bond, what's being said about the growth, what's being said about what's happening in your community, from a wide range of stakeholders. So tonight I'm just going to touch on a few of the highlights from those observations and that survey. Really 4 significant issues have emerged, and I could probably have not shown you these, quizzed you, and you would have gotten these right. Okay, so these are ones that we hear a lot. They're not good, bad, or indifferent. They're very common, but we want to be prepared so that we can help the community understand what's happening as we go about this process. How can we pass a bond with no tax increase? I'll touch on that a little bit. What about traffic? I don't know. I went back and looked at 2021 bond website. It also had concerns about traffic on it. And everywhere I've ever worked, no one ever comes around and says, oh, our traffic's fine. Everything's good with traffic. So traffic is always a concern. We just had a bond. I mentioned 2021. We're back at it again. How is that even possible? And then, the amount. Around $800 million is what the committee is recommending. That is a big number, and it is. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how can we pass a bond with no tax increase. Growth pays for growth. So you all know we're at the top of the INS cap. You've got 50 cents that you're assessing right now to pay your debt, your INS rate. So this bond will have no impact on that tax rate, right? We'll stay at 50 cents there. That's not uncommon for fast growth districts to have that amount because you've got folks moving in, you've got to be building schools, you're going to be incurring debt. This is how this goes. What we want to try to help explain to the taxpayer, we want people to understand, is whether or not the bond passes, the amount on a typical home is going to stay the same. The tax bill on that is going to stay the same because the tax rate doesn't change, right? So if you have a home valued at $330,000, the taxes you pay today would be $5,889.40. If the bond passes, it will be that amount. If the bond fails, it will be that amount. And those are things that are within the district's control. This is your locus of control, right? You don't control house values. You don't control other taxing entities. You control this tax rate that we're talking about here.
I want to clarify there that Phyllis obviously isn't saying that the value is not going to go up. She's just saying no matter the outcome of this bond, it's not going to affect anyone's tax rate. Their taxes are going to be what they are, no matter the outcome of the bond.
Yes. Thank you. Good clarification. We heard from financial advisors on the growth and the growth of your tax base. I just provide this graphic here. You all know this. This is nothing new for you. But our tax base is going to grow. And if it doesn't grow, we'll talk about what we do in the event of slow growth. So your growing tax base is really how you get more revenue. There are a few houses in Godley now. Your tax base grows, businesses, homes, other entities move in that contribute to that tax base. So that's where the district can get more revenue. When we say growth pays for growth, certainly the taxpayers that live here now continue to pay, but the new people that come in also will contribute, help that revenue come up so that we can pay for these schools, these programs, and the buses and the things that we need to accommodate the growth. You got it?
I was just going to say, so really the bond election is just asking our taxpayers permission to use the added capacity from all the new houses that are coming out.
Exactly. So that's kind of what we're saying here. When the voters approve a bond election, the taxpayer obligation is going to remain the same. And the district has the permission to sell the bonds that they need to pay for schools. If voters do not approve a bond election, their tax obligation is going to stay the same, but our district will not have the ability to go and access that money, sell bonds to pay for schools. And what if the tax base doesn't grow? Obviously, if the enrollment doesn't grow and the tax base doesn't grow, you slow down what you're doing. You take Aubrey's charts, you crumble them up, you throw them in the trash, we start over, right? We slow that down. When the election happens, it doesn't set this whole plan in motion. We don't start building 3 elementary schools. We don't go and borrow all the money. It gives us the opportunity to make a plan to respond to growth, whether that growth accelerates or whether it slows down. All right, no tax increase. How do we do that? Again, growth pays for growth. All right, didn't we just have a bond election? Well, we did in 2021. Plan for 1,400 students. As Aubrey mentioned, this bond plans for 5,000 new students. It's a good reminder to look at this map to see the growth that's coming. Chisholm Trail Parkway, 22 subdivisions, 20,000 future lots. Your enrollment is expected to continue to increase. This chart too, I think just important to keep reminding folks that if all of this comes true, and these demographers spend a lot of time on this information, they're typically pretty good at what they do. Double-digit growth expected for the next 8 years. So in that time frame where we're going to be asking to borrow this money and build these schools, you'll be having that growth coming. So in answer to the didn't we just have a bond, certainly. 2021, we planned for 1,400 students. We got the new elementary school, significant additions to this great building. This new proposal, will just remind you, is 5,000 students. We're catching those postponed projects that were due to inflation in this bond. 3 new elementary schools, a new middle school, renovations and additions at Godley Middle School, the high school, and then those renovations of the elementary to bring those up to equity. So a much larger list, meeting the needs of new students, but you saw that growth. It's accelerating. All right, $880 million, that's a big number. No doubt, it is a big number. But have we mentioned the growth? So part of what's gone into that number, of course, is our inflation and escalation challenges, the things that Aubrey explained to you, the responsible planning of building that escalation number in, so that we're not caught off guard, we're not caught by surprise, but we have the opportunity to pull back a little bit, recalculate some of those plans in the event that the inflation situation changes. Puts district in a strong position to respond to the growth as needed. You know, you've got this opportunity to pull back or to accelerate if you need to, depending on the growth, depending on the bonding capacity, depending on the financial situation. Bonds only issued as needed, and you don't build schools if the kids aren't coming. So you can just slow those plans down. This is just a little recap on kind of how the projects would be built, again, to illustrate that you've got this opportunity to slide some of these projects around. Your enrollment at the top from 2,800 to 7,804. You know, if that slides, then you just slide those projects right along with it. You have enough time in design and lead up to know how to adjust this timeline. And then on that bottom row, the high school additions and other projects, those are those projects that Aubrey's talking about, that you can look at the total high school plan and say, looks like we need to go ahead and do the CTE classrooms, or we need to go ahead and do this portion of the fine arts, because that's the highest need at this time. They're small enough projects that they can be slotted in, and as capacity is needed, and as bonding capacity becomes available, as you have the money to do those projects. All of these projects are escalated out to 2031, so they're at a higher rate than probably what they will actually, when they'll actually come to fruition. But the responsible thing, I think, to do is to look at those fully out to that 2031. That's an answer to the question of why this is such a large number. And then, worth mentioning, there are a few districts that we know of already that have either recommended or are calling bonds, and their numbers are large as well. Everyone is grappling with some of these same situations in this North Texas area that's either growing like crazy, or they've got aging buildings that need to be brought up to speed. Those costs are high. All right, what about traffic? In this plan, we can be proactive about doing some planning for traffic. There's some we can't control, but there are some things we can control. I think we've already got good feedback that the opening at Pleasant View has helped this campus, or the campus area down there on Pearson to open up a little bit. That 2030-31 has helped a little bit. Repurposing the 6th grade center would also provide some relief to that area because it won't be, full of students. Neighborhood schools, will distribute our traffic more evenly as you get more schools out of the community and away from, a central campus plan. We'll have some relief there. The land purchases that you all will do, proactive design, we can put some queuing on campuses, bring lines of parents waiting for carpool off the main road and onto your campus. That can help. And then with a proactive plan in place, with a long-range plan in place, you have a better chance of, sitting down with entities like TxDOT and other, government entities that help you build your roads and help you do your planning. You can be a little more proactive with them. This proposal also includes a traffic study for this area, the master plan, as Aubrey mentioned, right here around the high school and middle school. Again, helping you understand entrances, egress, how to get the queuing on your campus more efficiently, those kinds of things. So 4 big questions and concerns. It's really, I feel like I sound like a broken record, but it's about the growth. These kids are coming, and we think that this is a good opportunity for you all to be proactive. Anybody who says, we just had a bond, we don't do a large bond, we'll have another bond soon. And once we have this bond, there'll probably be another bond. Whether it's in 2 years or in 8 years, this is a place that's growing, and that's how Texas has us pay for our schools, is borrow the money and pay it off. So, what questions can I answer for you all?
Okay. Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you, guys. Mr. Carnes. First look at our calendar.
Well, good evening. So just a quick update and to put it on your radar. The District Improvement Committee met last week and began looking at the 24-25 calendar, so that's a year ahead. Just as a reminder, this year and next year's calendars have already been approved, so we're working a year ahead. Really no major wholesale changes, nothing to get too excited about. The anticipation is that we'll start around the 1st of August, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere right in that neighborhood, and then end right before Memorial Day. And so, really, again, we're going to come back in February, and the committee is going to look at it one more time and just do some fine tuning and tweaking on certain holidays, staff development days, those types of things. And then the intention is to bring the 24-25 calendar to you in February. Any questions on the calendar?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you cleaned that up or addressed that last time, but we talked about the half days.
Yes, sir. So currently, the question was about half days in the calendar, and so currently the only anticipated half days are at the end of the semester. So there's 2 half days at the end of the first semester and 2 half days at the end of the second semester. So no, there are currently no half days planned or proposed in the calendar.
Okay.
And then next is personnel. So we have started, it is that time of year that we begin working on our personnel for next year. And so we've started just in the evaluation process. We actually did some pretty intensive work on that today, analyzing our growth projections, budget, current staff, class sizes, our academic data, all of those things, district needs, principals, and discussing our campus needs. And so we want a lot of things and want to add every program for our students that we can. We do have to prioritize those needs, and so we're now in the process of prioritizing those, looking to see where we need the most help and to try to staff those appropriately. So we will come to you next month with a more refined plan on those positions and what we're looking to
to add and what we can add if approved. And so then we would then come back to you in March for the final approval of the positions.
Questions from Mr. Carnes?
Yeah, Mr. Carnes, probably the question doesn't need to be asked, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Lessons learned is that we had a tool to be able to compare class sizes and how that's distributed. Are we using that tool? Is that a part of our plan? Is that a factor?
Yes, sir. So we have a spreadsheet that has class sizes, our current staff, and then Brian has given us, so with our projected enrollment, and we've used a conservative number there to try to anticipate what staff we will need for next year. So, but yes, we have a systematic approach to looking at that, making sure we don't go over budget and that we stay within what we need to serve our kids. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move into business items, and first we'll consider the consent agenda items. That motion by Terry, a second by Krista. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Hold on.
One of the questions I had asked was some of our expenditures associated with renting a truck for the marching band. Is that something that we're still looking into?
Still running the truck?
No, how much we've spent on that as opposed to what we had anticipated.
Brian, you took that today, didn't you?
Still in work?
9,400?
Okay. All right. I think that was it. Thank you.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we'll consider land donation for Godley ISD Elementary Pleasant View site.
So these are the two sliver of lands on each side of Pleasant View on the north and the south side. The developer, Terramana, went ahead and just gave those to us. They total about 1.9 acres, both of them together. It's not a lot of land, but it does help us with our playing fields. I know we've got a one full-size soccer/football field, and Melissa, how many backstops do we have there? We've got at least 8 or 9, don't we?
6 total, 4 on one end and 2 on the other.
Okay, I thought we had more than that. So it gives us a lot of playing fields for our youth organizations and our peewee, and we want our kids in our community to be able to use those areas after school as well. So it's just something official. You have to accept the donation. I can accept the other donations, but I can't accept the land.
I move the board approve the donation of 2 parcels of land totaling 1.932 acres from Silo Mills LLC used for the Pleasant View Elementary site as presented.
Second.
A motion by Krista, a second by Craig. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Number 7C, we'll consider the resolution of Godley ISD School Board Trustees authorizing the commissioning of peace officers.
So before we go into that, I thought I'd give you just a brief history. We've been talking about our own PD for some time now. We knew that our growth was coming, and we knew that when we did get to a certain size, like most school districts, we would most likely transition over and have our own police force. But when I arrived here in 2005, our SROs were run by Johnson County Sheriff's Department, and they ran a couple of the SRO departments in the county, and then we kind of look up and we're the only one left that they were working with. I think Tim Kim was our first SRO. You guys remember him? I think he's a commissioner now. Then we got Dusty. Dusty was great, and he asked me when we thought we might start our own PD. So just a lot of conversations, nothing official, just conversations about growth, and someday it'll probably happen. I know in 2014 when we were designing this building, the high school, we talked a lot about safety and security, but that was when we first saw our growth really start spiking and really started to have serious talks about our PD, even with this group as well. 2020 we approved Guardians. In 2021, Dusty and I talked about getting him some help as far as additional SROs, because we were getting to that size where he just couldn't handle everything, all of the outside duties, and that's when we actually started using some Godley PD to help us with that. Then March 22, we hired Brian Hunt as our Director of Student Safety and Wellbeing. Of course, May 24th was Uvalde. That's when Sheriff King and I talked about getting all the ISDs together to talk about safety and security. And when all the superintendents and all the law enforcement agencies, we talked a lot about what we do, what the other organizations do, and we shared a lot of ideas. Early June, Sheriff King and I coordinated the Johnson County Safety Summit, where we got all the ISDs and the police agencies together. And talking with Sheriff King, he told me that as long as Dusty was our SRO, that he would support us, but he kind of wanted to get out of the SRO business with us, just because we were getting to such a size that he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to support us the way we needed to. And that's, again, we just had more unofficial conversations. And then I think it was it August when Dusty officially retired from the county and went to work for the city and was our SRO. We had just changed because we had, Mr. Wallace and I had always talked about, maybe someday when we add an SRO, even with Dusty with the county, maybe we added, it would be a city PD person. So we'd have those conversations, because I like the idea of having the two different organizations together. And I spoke with Constable Matt Wiley about maybe adding one from his department, again, just to help with collaboration. On June 9th, we held our first Johnson County Safety Summit at the high school. I think we had almost every ISD here. I think Burleson was about the only one that wasn't. We created our active shooter protocol. And in the middle of June, at TASB School Board training, of course, you guys know, safety and security was a big topic post-Uvalde. July, we had our second Johnson County Safety Summit and unveiled our crisis protocol. And then I think it was July, I said August. July is when Dusty informed the Sheriff's Office that he was going to leave the county and go to work for the PD. And then August 3rd, Dusty officially started with Godley PD. You guys approved a budget to add 2 additional SROs. So Dusty plus 2. We posted those in September, I believe. I'm not sure when Officer Quinteros applied, but I think he applied pretty soon after we posted. We felt like we were looking for just looking for some some people that were a good fit out there. And I know he definitely thinks that too. September 29th, we had our Wildcat community meeting, Wildcat Talks community meeting with Sheriff King, Constable Matt Wiley, and Dusty and Brian Hunt. We talked again about safety and security. And then October 10th is when the city lost their chief of police, and that's when it kind of hit us that if we're tied to another entity, that things that happen that are out of our control really impact us. And the next day, Dusty came to me and said, "Hey, we need to I want to seriously start looking at starting our SRO program soon." And I said, "We'll do some research and we'll bring it to the board, bring it to the administrators, and we'll kind of see how it goes." And from then, it kind of started going pretty quick. Met with Dusty again on the 28th, and he brought me his research. But that was also when he informed me that he had been offered the chief of police at SRO at Rio Vista, the SRO there. And I countered because we love Dusty, but I think there were a lot of other factors. Dusty was actually thinking about moving out to Rio, and he liked the thought of being back at a small school because we were growing a little bit. So as far as hiring, we had budgeted for 2 additional SROs, so we already had some applicants. So we were moving slow on hiring the additional SROs just because we had just started a new relationship with the city. So we were kind of feeling it out and seeing, all right, how are we going to hire, and how's the committee going to work, and different input. But we talked with David. We started moving on that because obviously we didn't have an SRO when Dusty left. So and we we had a great relationship with the city at that time, and I asked David, I said, hey, if we start moving in the direction of having our own PD, is that going to hurt our relationship? He said, absolutely not. We're here to support you guys. Of course, we knew the city would be. In November, Brian Hunt, our Director of Safety and Security and Wellbeing, contacted a third-party consultant to get a better grasp of what would be involved in starting an ISD PD. We looked at our applicant pool. We interviewed November 18th. Matt Quinteros was one of those that was interviewed, and November 28th offered him the position. He accepted. Of course, I communicated with David Wallace, and he said that was absolutely fine. We talked with our lawyers and said that's absolutely fine according to the MOU. December 21st, we officially advertised for a third-party consulting firm to help guide us through the process. I think January 9th was Matt Quinteros' first day as an SRO, and January 13th, the GISD committee reviewed the third-party applicants and made a recommendation. We hired a firm to help us. The school board isn't required to take formal action until we officially start it, but we wanted to go ahead and make some actions tonight. You guys that was just a quick rundown of kind of the process, because we have been talking about this for a while. We've had a lot of conversations, so I just wanted to run through that. Do y'all have any questions about the history of kind of how we got here? I do want to answer one thing. I know one of our speakers in public participation said that I was invited to a city council meeting. I have never been formally invited to a city council meeting. I just want to let you guys know that. Of course, I talk with city council members. We've got great relationships, but we've never officially spoken about that. So I did want to clear the air there. So saying that, Brian, you can go ahead and take it away. And
Thank
let
you.
us know.
I'm excited to lead this.
Wait, Brian.
Yes, sir. The question, not so much about the history, so thanks for the rundown. But you mentioned a number of times there's been different conversations and such, and you spoke a little bit about the process. So talk to me about how we have involved our legal representation to make sure that we've got all I's dotted and T's crossed, so that we don't have any surprises.
Yes, sir.
Surprises are not good in this business.
Yes, sir. Brian, I'll let you.
Yes. No, that's a great question. The first thing I'll tell you, Craig, is that every one of these documents has passed through our attorney's hands. The documents from Johnson County have come from their attorneys, and all these documents have passed through our consultants' hands as well. We've also gotten in touch with the Texas Association of School Boards, and the policy recommendations are on here tonight, so we've gotten in touch with them. They've cross-referenced everything to make sure everything's aligned. So we have been in constant communication with our attorneys and with Texas Association of School Boards to make sure as we move down the line on TCOL application that we are where we're supposed to be.
Okay, follow up there. I know a number of other Johnson County school districts have their own police forces. Again, a couple of them have been mentioned. Run through the list of even some of the larger ones that have their own police forces.
Sure. I reached out to a number one to see how they did it. You know, how did they take this on and do it? Josh,
Do you want I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you want the actual the ISDs?
Yes, I want the list of ISDs.
Aledo, Alvarado, Argyle, Aubrey, Azle, Castleberry, Crowley, Eagle Mountain, Saginaw, Gainesville, Joshua, Keene, Crum, Mansfield, Newman International Academy, Pilot Point, Rio Vista, Venus, and White Settlement. That's just regional level.
And I've got Duncanville, Crowley, and Venus as well.
Okay, so I didn't hear the larger ones, Burleson, Cleveland. Did I miss that?
No, they I believe they do have partnerships with their. Burleson just started theirs. Okay, I'm pretty sure Cleveland works with their city, and I think also through Constable Wiley's office for their attendance.
Okay, thank you.
As I was saying, I reached out to a number, and lots of districts have used, chief of police with Texas law enforcement experience, and that was their job to build the department. And many of the districts have used consultation services. So we reached out just to see what everybody else was doing, and we could maybe piece together what would work for our district. So did I answer that?
I have a question. Where you meet, Godley. So what are our that leaves either creating our own or going and having an MOU with the city of Godley. Is that correct? Do we have any
Or
other options?
we could work with the constable's department, Matt Wiley. Yes, we've spoken with him, and he said that he would he'd be open to talking about it.
Does anybody else in the county use the constable?
I don't know. I know Cleveland uses them for attendance help. I'm not sure about that.
No, and I know Matt has talked about other districts. He's just never mentioned which ones, but he's talked about it. At least 2 districts, I think, they use the constable's office.
Addressing concerns of kind of a checks and balance system of who the chief of police would report to and how we can maybe have the people discuss how we could possibly have a unique situation so we could have some extra checks and balances.
So I know you can have your police department audited, so we would definitely want to do that. I know when David Walsh was still with the city, we talked about still having weekly meetings with the 2 chiefs and with Adam King as well. Maybe Sheriff King might not be able to meet weekly, but monthly or on a regular or semi-regular basis. So we would definitely want to, I guess, check in, so to speak, with the other law enforcement agencies because we would be new to this. So we would definitely want to make sure that we were doing things correctly and on the right track.
Again, following up on checks and balances here. So we've heard some examples of some potential incidents outside the bounds of checks and balances. So do we have any kind of feedback from other districts that express what those checks and balances are?
I can take. I know that these districts have talked to me about TCO. It's obviously a governing board, the agency, and their school board is also a way that they use to checks and balances against those districts. All the chiefs that I spoke with have said they've had success in their districts and that they've been talking with TCO, the Texas Education Agency, as they move forward, if they develop new policies or procedures, and they run everything by their school boards if they want to start something new or do something like that. They constantly communicate with their boards.
I'm sorry, I have a follow-up question. You said you spoke to how many chiefs?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 districts.
And this may be a question you can't answer, so I apologize, but how long have those districts had their own police department?
That's a good question. A number of years, I don't know the exact years. I know that what I asked the chiefs is how many years of experience they have in Texas law enforcement, since it's its own language. TCO has its own language like the Texas Education Agency. And I think the lowest number I had was 22 years, and that was in Venus with Robert Wood. And so all those have had, and there were a lot of them were prior SROs. But I know there's, out of the districts I spoke with, I don't believe any were newly started, but I don't know the exact number of how old those ISD police departments were.
Another good check is, obviously, if we have a big situation, we're discussing that with our lawyers, and anytime if we think that there is a conflict of interest, they would recommend, well, maybe we need to let another entity, handle that. I can think of 2 times off the top of my head in the 18 years I've been here. One time, Godley PD handled it for us, and one time the county handled it for us. And we thought that, maybe we just want to, to make sure that we're being very transparent. So we could also do that as well. And our lawyers would say, we need to do this just to make sure that we're doing everything correctly.
Did I answer that? Not like I did, Chris. Welcome.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the first item that we'd like you to consider is our resolution. The resolution allows the creation of the ISD Chief Police. That also allows us to commission, or the district to commission, peace officers, and it also allows for those same commission officers to carry weapons and be security personnel. So we would ask that you would approve that resolution so that we can start this process.
And just to clarify, the when we get to forming our police department, how, just off the top of your head, how many months away would you say that we are still?
I talked to our consultants today, and we're hoping to have this done in 4 or 5 months as we go through the TCO application. And obviously, we have to wait on the state to be able to, get us what they need and get back to us. So after we get everything on our TCO checklist done, we'll submit that, and then we'll be waiting on them.
So most of these approvals are just so we can move forward with what we're doing. It's not saying that it's going to happen tomorrow.
So for example, the resolution, we have to submit the minutes, we have to submit the signed document for us to be able to get that off the TCO checklist.
So if we go through the process, approve these different actions, to give you the authorization to go start the process, is there another checkpoint for the board somewhere along the way before we say, yes, move forward?
Go ahead.
That would be, Craig, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I talked to our consultants today, and they said as things come up that need board approval, we would bring those to you. But as we go along the process, we'll be, relying on them to get back with us. If we have to approve anything with the board, we'll be bringing that to you.
And we've already started the processes. These aren't, things that have to be started before we can do anything. We're just, I guess, kind of getting these out of the way so we can expedite, just because to make sure we can get our everything taken care of that we need to.
And this will start the TCO. We haven't started on the TCO application. We've got lists, we've got everything in place where we're going, but we need this. This will be the first thing to get off that checklist and get submitted, be ready to submit. Any other questions?
Point of order.
I'm sorry, only the people up here can call point of order.
Do you mind repeating according to?
You are attending this meeting. You are not participating in this meeting.
May I record that? Will you say that again?
Texas Open Meeting Act is an attendance law, not a participation law. Your time to participate was during public participation, which you did already, and that portion of the meeting is over. Please do not interrupt our meeting again.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of the Godley ISD School Board Trustees authorizing the commissioning of peace officers as presented.
I have a motion by Terry, a second by Dennis. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Number 7, we'll consider revisions to Godley ISD District Policy DH Local and CKE Local.
Okay, good. These are straight from TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards. The first one we'd like you to consider is DH Local. It is an existing policy. The only thing that will change for your approval is it will add CKE as a separate policy. If you'll notice on point 1 under exceptions, CKC allows guardians and authorized people to carry weapons on campus, and CKE will then allow our commissioned peace officers to carry. And that'll be the second policy, which you have there. And the CKE policy is from TASB, and it is to, number 1, authorize us to be able to create regulations manual with all of our procedures. And then basically the CKE policy is the operations for the district police department to operate.
Just asking,
yes, sir.
I hope to be the obvious. Again, our legal representation has reviewed these recommended policy updates.
Yes, in fact, our attorney looked at 2 points today that our consultants had questions about. She reviewed them again today and got back with us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve the revisions to Godley ISD District Policy DH Local and CKE Local as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Craig, a second by Dennis. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. And the next document is the MOU Now, throughout this process, we'll be using Johnson County for some various services. This MOU is how we will conduct that business with Johnson County when we need to use their services for different things. On the board agenda tonight is dispatch services. We'll also be using them for evidence, jail, and radios and those type of things. So as we go throughout, this MOU will allow us to essentially conduct business with Johnson County and use services with them that we cannot provide here in the district, but they will provide for us.
Does this change anything that we already had established with the city of Godley?
No, we'll still continue to use those services with them. Sometimes we may be using services with the city of Godley, and we may be using them with Johnson County. It really depends on who can assist us and what that is. And so as we move further, our consultants will be looking into that as we go down the requirements for TCO of where we can get those services if we need to, ask another entity for that arrangement. So we could use City of Godley, we could use Johnson County. It just depends on what that service is and who can provide that for us. Did I answer that, Krista?
All right, I may be asking the same question, but I'm going to ask it differently.
Yes, sir.
Do we think our existing MOU with Godley is broad enough and specific enough, yet at the same time, to cover what would be needed, provided we move forward with the creation?
Yes, it has been so far. We looked at the MOU. It's very standard. It's done great. What we're going to do is just look at what's the best services that we can give for our students and our staff, and where can we get that from. Our consultants will be looking at that as, it might be easier to hold evidence down at Godley PD as opposed to Johnson County if we need to hold evidence. So as we go throughout that, we'll look at our existing MOU to see if that would, be a good way to handle things. And if that's the case, we'll do that. If not, then we may go seek Johnson County. We may use the constable services. It just depends on who can, give us what. And then secondly, our consultants and I will be looking at how other PDs, ISD PDs do things. Who do they have their things through? And Johnson County uses most of the entities around here for dispatch and radio. And that's why we went with them. And Godley PD does that too, for dispatch.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did I answer that?
Yes.
I move the board approve the MOU with Johnson County Sheriff's Office regarding shared services as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Terry, a second by Marissa. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, the next one is the legal agreement that we can use. Right now we're talking about dispatch, and so that's the legal agreement with Johnson County that we can access their dispatch. The next agreement will be the how-to we do with Johnson County, but this is the legal agreement that we can use their dispatch services, period. And that's what this MOU states.
Brian, can you give a little more explanation, like when we would need to use their dispatch?
Yes,
What situations we would need to use it?
So if one of our PD officers needed to call in dispatch for assistance, or they need to do a background check, and I believe this is the way this works, Marissa, is that we'll have our own dedicated phone number for Godley ISD PD. That'll be routed through dispatch, and then they will give our police officers that information. So, just like a city PD, it will work the same way. I believe the phone number, that's the way it works, but I do know we'll use their dispatch for checking background checks. We need assistance with something, it goes straight to them. You're welcome. Did I answer that?
I'll make a motion to approve the communication system agreement between Johnson County and Godley ISD.
Second.
A motion by Craig, a second by Krista. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, 7G will consider non-terminal agency agreement.
And what it means by non-terminal is that one of our police officers, they're not in front of a computer terminal, non-terminal, to be able to do a background check. So I think Officer Quinteros just went to training to go to that he can check background checks. So this agreement says that our officers are trained. They can call in and do background checks, get information on people, and then those people have the legal authority to be able to look that information up and share it back with us. And that's what this agreement says. And all of our PD officers have to go to that training in order to be able to do those things. And so that's what this agreement says, that they're trained and so are we.
I move the board approve the non-terminal agency agreement as presented.
I have a motion by Terry, a second by Marissa. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. And next, 7H, will consider interlocal cooperation agreement for dispatching services for budget year 2022-2023.
And so this is the nuts and bolts of how we will work with Johnson County on dispatch, and that's what this MOU. So the first MOU was the legal agreement to be able to access it, and this is how we will work with Johnson County. And again, this is, our attorneys were impressed with how well this was written, and this is what Johnson County uses with all of their entities, ISD PDs and local city PDs as well.
I move the board approve the interlocal cooperation agreement for dispatching services for budget year 2022-2023 as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Krista, a second by Marissa. Is there any discussion?
Yes, question. This obviously is tied to this specific budget year. Are we going to have to approve a specific agenda item every year, or is this going to be rolled in as part of the regular budget? What's the plan?
Yes, it'll be rolled into the regular budget, and we actually have some, our consultants were able to get us some pricing, and we're going to pay, King will be relatively comparable to them, and they pay about $162 a year, and then they pay $25 a month per radio. So typically you have, per radio, per officer, and so our, and you also pay, and that's a good question, because you also pay per call, like you pay the calls. So high rate of calls that go in, you pay more of the pot. And so all the entities, I believe, is about $408,000 that you split every year, but it's based on the number of calls. You get more calls, you're going to pay more because you use the services more. So we're going to be comparable to some of these smaller districts. King pays $161.16 a year, and then $25 per radio. And so we'll budget somewhere in there, depending on how many radios we get. The radios are $25 a month, so we'll just roll that in and have that budget. So it should not be a huge budget item unless we start getting lots of calls from our ISDPD. But most of the cities cover that because they use the bulk, they get the bulk of the calls. Thank you. Did I answer that correct?
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Brian. Next, 7I will consider the 2021 financial audit report from Snow Garrett CPAs.
Hello. Yes, I'd like to introduce Duncan Ely. He is a CPA with Snow Garrett Williams, our independent audit firm that performed the financial audit for Godley ISD for 2021-2022 school year.
Good evening, board. I'm Duncan Ely. I'm a manager on our audit team, and I appreciate y'all having me here tonight. We'll start on page 1 of the report. I should have those bound copies there. Page 1 is your certificate of the board. This is where you will approve or disapprove of the audit. It will need to be signed by the board secretary and the board president. Brian has a loose copy that I'll need to get back so I can give him what he needs to get everything submitted to TEA by the deadline. That's January 28th, so we're getting pretty close now. Jump over to page 2. This is the meat of the report. This is our auditor's report. For those of you who have seen these reports for years, it's different this year. It's not because anything has changed in the district or because of any issues. It's a change in reporting standards by our standard setters. Doesn't change much. It expands a little bit of the responsibilities and then also reorders it. So you're used to having seen the opinion at the very end of the letter. It's right at the beginning now because that's what's important. So we'll start with the opinion. We have audited the accompanying financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund and aggregate remaining fund information of Godley Independent School District as of August 31st, 2022. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, major funds, and aggregate remaining fund information. That's your unmodified opinion and the highest level of assurance that we can give in our audit. The next paragraph is our basis for the opinion. We conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and with government auditing standards. We jump down to the responsibilities of management paragraph at the bottom of that page. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America and for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control. Flip to the next page, please. This is the auditor's responsibility for financial statements. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's opinion that includes our opinions. And then flip to the next page in the very last paragraph. In accordance with government auditing standards, we have also issued our report on our consideration of Godley Independent School District's internal control over financial reporting and on our tests of its compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, and other matters. That's a school first indicator that we're required to report on. In the report, we'll go over a couple more that also are related to the audit report at the very end, but that's the answer you want in this report. Make a jump over to page 15, please. This should be a side-by-side report going across 2 pages, 15 and 16. This is the district's balance sheet of governmental funds. Just a quick layout. Along the left side, we have assets, followed by liabilities, followed by deferred inflows of resources, followed by fund balance. Across the top, we have our major funds first. That's the general fund, the debt service fund, the capital project fund. Then you have the other governmental funds. That's all the non-major funds. It's primarily made up of your special revenue funds. And then on the far right, you have a totaling column. The total assets of the district were $133,367,000. Total liabilities were $9,856,000. Deferred inflows of resources related to property taxes was $370,000 for a total ending fund balance $123,140,000. We move to the far left there, your general fund. General fund's total assets were $12,400,000. Total liabilities $4,500,000. Deferred inflows for property taxes, $246,000, and a total fund balance at year end of $7,657,000. That's broken into a few categories, but the highlight is your unassigned fund balance. That's $2,400,000. Move over to page 18, please. Again, this is another 2-page exhibit. Pretty similar layout with those same exact columns going across the right. However, on the left, we have revenues, followed by expenditures, followed by our net change in fund balance, and then at the end, our same ending fund balances that we just looked at. In the total governmental columns, we have total revenues of the district of $42,959,000. Total expenditures of the district were $91,280,000. Just take a quick moment to note that that's such a large number due to the bond proceeds and then the subsequent capital outlay. That's why that's so much higher than the revenues, and the bond proceeds are then in that next section for other sources and uses, giving you a net change in fund balance, an increase of $4,500,000 for that same total governmental fund ending fund balance of $123,140,000. Your total revenues in the general fund were $28,400,000. That's an increase over last year of about $3.8 million between local and the state allotment were the two drivers of that increase. Your total expenditures were $30,173,000 for a net decrease in general fund balance of $1,700,000. And again, that same ending fund balance, we saw the $7,657,000. Make a big jump here over to page 49, please. Give y'all a minute to flip. Page 49 is your general fund budgetary comparison schedule. So along the left, we have the same categories, revenues and expenditures. And then on the right, we have our budgeted original amount, followed by our final budgeted amount, then our actual expenditures and revenues for the year, and then the final column there is a variance comparing your actual expenditures and revenues to your final budget. Your total expenditures came in under budget $805,000 with no over expenditure in any functional categories. Give yourselves a pat on the back for doing budgeting, for doing a good job budgeting. At the bottom of column 3, your total expenditures, $30,173,000. If you'll keep that in mind, we'll jump over. Actually, we won't use that number on this schedule anymore. Sorry about that. We'll talk about those.
What page are you on?
49. And then we'll jump over to page 73 to our school first indicators. These are all of the school first indicators that have some impact or derivative from the audit, but we will not go through all of those because I've poured them into tiers. We'll just read the big important ones. The first, was there an unmodified opinion in the annual financial report on financial statements as a whole? Yes, there was. Was there any disclosure in the annual financial report and or other sources of information concerning the non-payment of any terms of any debt agreement at fiscal year end? No, there were not. We'll jump down to SF5. Did the annual financial report disclose any instances of material weaknesses in internal control over financial reporting and compliance for local, state, or federal funds? No, it did not. The next one. Was there any disclosure in the annual financial report of material noncompliance for grants, contracts, and laws related to local, state, or federal funds? And no, there were not. All 4 of those answers and all the rest of the answers on this schedule are going exactly where you wanted to go, so you got 100% of the points related to the audit on this coming year's school first questionnaire. Do y'all have any questions over anything we covered or otherwise tonight? I'd like to thank Brian for all his hard work this year. It's always a hard year to transition auditors. It's a big job. I think about as smooth as it could have been. Really appreciate he and his office's diligence in that process. Thank you all for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the 2021 financial audit from Snow Garrett CPA as presented.
A motion by Craig, a second by Terry. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. That convenes all the business items for tonight, and the time is 8:16 p.m. The board will move into closed session.